Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. And joining me once again is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind. Drew, you got something just behind your shoulder. I wouldn't look too quickly, but he looks really hungry.
It's just a friendly xenomorph. They're all nice and fluffy, right?
Oh, is that the adoptable one? Is that the one you trained and is pretty nice to cuddle with sometimes and give it some nice little snacks?
That's right. Yeah, just some graham crackers, that kind of thing. Actually, over on Fresh Out the Podcast, where I podcast weekly with my friend Jahan, we actually did a horror movie draft this is like a while back, but and so you could draft like creatures or characters or that type of thing. But I had the first overall pick, and the xenomorph was the first overall pick for me. I love the xenomorph. I think he's super scary. I think he's just one of the best designed horror sci-fi creatures. Love it. Love everything about the xenomorph.
He's your MVP. He is your like Tom Brady when it comes to draft picks.
He really is.
I love that. Obviously, that's teasing what we're talking about. But in this podcast, we explore the world of cinema from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters. We're on episode 53. So once again, we do head back to space using our frequent flyer miles and where no one can hear you scream, right, Drew? No one can hear you scream.
In space, no, they can't.
But before we get into what is called Alien Romulus, we want to make sure you can connect with us online. You can find me on almost every single social media platform at Sean Taj. Nerdtropolis is at Nerdtropolis. And don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. And Drew, once again, where can people find you when you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms. You can find me here with Sean, always talking movies on the Moviegoers Society. I also podcast over at Fresh Out the Podcast, or you can catch me on Letterboxd logging different movies like today when I logged Alien Romulus, because I actually just saw it today. It is fresh in my mind.
I love that. Also, don't forget to catch up on past episodes of the Moviegoers Society. You got 52 episodes to check out, and tune into my podcast, Real Insights, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course the Nerdtropolis YouTube channel. I dropped a few interviews, but I guess the one I really want to highlight is also with director Paul Feig for his new Prime Video film, Jackpot. I watched it a couple of times. My parents watched it. It's a lot of fun. It's an interesting little premise. Drew, before we do talk Alien Romulus, what did you think about Jackpot?
I kind of feel the same way about Jackpot that I felt about Ricky Stenicki, which is another John Cena comedy that we discussed on this show. And both of them are kind of these like high concept or strange concept comedies. And even if you're not fully with it, like John Cena has so much presence and charisma that I can just watch him do anything. And that's kind of how I felt about Jackpot. It's very silly. It does not take itself seriously at all. It's a totally bizarre concept of like this, you win the lottery, but everybody has a limited amount of time to try to kill you, but they cannot use guns. Like bullets, specifically are prohibited, which really just seems like a loophole for the movie to make it so that they can't kill the person instantly. But it's I like Awkwafina in general, and the pair up of Awkwafina and John Cena I thought was very fun. So it's not, this one's not winning any Oscars. It's not like probably getting all the critical praise out there.
John Cena has been killing it lately with his comedic talents. It's kind of wild how he's leaning really hard in this. I love it. I just love John Cena doing comedy. I told Paul Feig, I was like, what is it about John Cena? Check out that interview. There's some really cool insights about working with John Cena and Awkwafina and just pushing comedy to the edge for Jackpot, because it doesn't take itself seriously and it pokes fun at a lot of things in this world, which I absolutely loved.
As a longtime John Cena fan and a longtime wrestling fan, I really didn't know how, I don't know. I just have a lot of feelings about Cena in general, especially from the wrestling side. And I really didn't know how his transition to movie star was going to go. And I have to give credit where credit's due, because he's made that transition so much better than I expected. I genuinely like him in movies. There's a lot of movies that if it wasn't for him, I don't think the movies would work. So, props to John Cena. want to continue seeing him on the big screen.
Yeah, there's more to come from him for sure. But yeah, check out my review and interview for Jackpot. I got more interviews coming your way. I watched Terminator Zero, which is dropping on Judgment Day, which folks know that's what I think August 29th. So I talked to Matson about his creation. And he's a really talented writer. And I spoke to the director also of that show, who is Japanese and in Japan, because it was a studio that took care of that. And I also talked to the showrunner for the Lara Croft Netflix series coming out. So that'll be coming out soon, and a lot more coming. But Drew, as you see behind me, you have the Xenomorph. I have a little friend over here. He's pretty cute.
Just a cute little face hugger.
Yeah. This is going pretty viral when I posted about it. When I went to my press screening in IMAX, I went to Regal, and this was their popcorn bucket. And I was like, how did I not know this was going to be coming out? I mean, this is awesome. Like, check that out.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Does it seem like a popcorn bucket? That's why I got it, because I'm not like the biggest Alien fan per se, but like, this is cool. Absolutely love it.
The face hugger's on the outside.
Yeah,
from the other pictures, I thought it was inside.
No, it's broken out, broken glass, everything. Yeah, it is awesome. Super cool. This was a great addition to my collection. I'm gonna put him back because he can get a little feisty.
Understandable.
But that was a nice little touch to have during my film, to have a face hugger on my lap as I was watching this. But yeah, I want to dive right into this. Alien Romulus. And I will say I'm not like the biggest Alien fan out there. I've seen, I don't think I've seen all of them per se. The ones that came out, I guess, is the late 90s, early 2000s, probably caught them on TV. I don't even know when those came out in theaters, but obviously was way too young to watch those, and probably ended up watching on TV when UPN had a bunch of movies back in the day that are showing in other channels. But watch the first two. I love Prometheus. I think that's what really got me into the franchise. And then Covenant wasn't the follow-up I was expecting, but I like it. But like, I kind of really like where Prometheus took us, but I don't really consider those a proper Alien film. It's something totally different of its own, and it's like kind of a introduction to something totally different. I think it's a whole concept that decided to be introduced. But then you have the Alien and Predator movies, which I actually loved, and those are really fun, especially the first one. So that's the franchise is a little, I don't know it's a mashup, right? Like, there's no real consistency in the franchise of tone, direction of story, and like what they want to do. It's just like a franchise that wants to have fun and really deliver some really nice sci-fi horror in some aspects. But Drew, what about your Alien fandom? Where did it begin? What is it like? Is it strong, or is it kind of like so with me?
It's very strong. We joke about how every time we have to do a space movie, I have like a space background, and I really like space movies. I mean, really, I'd say the Alien franchise is responsible for a lot of that. I watched Alien, the original, Ridley Scott's movie, when I was in college, back when I was kind of like really starting to discover my love for films and starting to feel like I needed to kind of fill in the backlog, watch the classics. And I watched the original Alien movie, I'm sure the way that Ridley Scott intended, which was on my laptop in a college dorm room. So still, that was my first experience with it, really liked it. And then as a physical media collector, eventually I bought what's famous among physical media collectors, the Alien quadrilogy is what a lot of people call it. It's actually, I think the proper name of the Blu-ray set is the Alien Anthology. It has the 4 movies, Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection, but a lot of people casually refer to it as the quadrilogy. And so that is on my shelf. So I have watched all of them. I actually recently rewatched a bunch of them when I was on parental leave when my new daughter was born. It's kind of strange to watch the Alien franchise in that setting, but it was like comfort food to me. I'm also with you. I feel like Prometheus was a little bit divisive when it came out. And it was marketed strange because they were kind of trying to hide the fact that it was an Alien movie, but I feel like everybody kind of knew. And it definitely was. And I feel like that was Ridley Scott just kind of like really having fun with the lore of Alien, and Covenant kind of expands on that. I really like Covenant too, but I agree. I don't think it's as strong as Prometheus. Um, but I have a soft spot for all the Alien movies, like even 3 and Resurrection, which are some I'd say lesser liked, some are even like some people find them totally repellent, like don't like them at all. I have a soft spot for all of them. Like I have things I like about every Alien movie. Of course I love Aliens, the second one, the James Cameron directed one. But yeah, I have a soft spot for literally every single one of these movies, and they all have different things that I like about them. Even when they take big swings, I kind of appreciate it, even if it doesn't always work.
So you probably would know more about the Easter eggs and callbacks in Alien Romulus. I caught a handful of them, but obviously there's a lot of it that probably went over my head. But this film is directed and written by, is it Fede Alvarez?
Yeah, Fede Alvarez.
And I have not seen his work before. Have you seen any of his work before? He has a pretty good filmography and some pretty, like, he did that Evil Dead movie in 2013. I don't think I saw that one, because Evil Dead's one of those franchises like Alien where I've seen a couple of them. I saw the newest Evil Dead. I saw some episodes of the Evil Dead series. I guess is Ash versus the Evil Dead. But that's not really my genre. But I do enjoy him. But any of his work, what are you familiar with?
Yeah, I have seen his Evil Dead kind of, it's hard to even call it. It's not a remake, but just kind of like a reboot Evil Dead movie. And I've seen Don't Breathe, which I actually really like. I've seen most of his movies. I've seen The Girl in the Spider's Web as well, which is the quasi sequel to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo that didn't have the same actress in it. This one had who was recast as this role. It was
The Claire Foy.
Claire Foy, that's right. And it's fine. It's not very good. I don't think that's all Fede Alvarez's fault. I think it's just it was a studio movie and it didn't really work trying to capitalize on the Fincher movie. But I think Evil Dead and Don't Breathe are both actually really good. So I thought Fede Alvarez was a great fit for Alien Romulus when I found out he was doing it.
Watching a lot of his interviews, you can see the love that he has for this franchise. His love for Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott also kind of entrusting him with his little baby. There's also a TV series that Ridley Scott's doing. Is he producing? What is he doing with that? Because
I think he's just producing. They showed a brief teaser for it actually at my movie screening today.
Did. That's what I heard.
I think it's just called Alien Earth. Does that sound right?
Yes, and it takes place before Prometheus, though.
Okay, so it's very early. Okay.
Oh, so can you describe this teaser trailer?
Honestly, it was very fast. It barely showed anything. I just remember seeing a xenomorph for a split second. It was kind of one of those things I didn't even realize what I was seeing until the title came up, and it happened so fast. So it was very, very quick. I kind of wasn't expecting there to be essentially a commercial before the trailers, so I wasn't fully invested in it until it was too late. So I need to look this up on YouTube and see if it's out there.
And I take that back. I don't believe it is before Prometheus. I think it's before the first Alien film.
Okay,
honestly, that's what I'm thinking it is. But the timelines are not messy per se, because there's a lot of stuff that tells you when they come out. But it's just wild how much time has passed between all the movies, in their world, and it's pretty cool. Like they jump time a lot. And so there's nothing really that takes place like almost immediately the next day. Like this is what's going on with this xenomorph that's in space or something. So there's a lot of storytelling to be told in the Alien franchise, I feel like. So I'm glad Ridley Scott's handing kind of the keys over to people really tell their version or their story they want. And that's what I like about Alien Romulus. It's so, everyone says it's exactly like the first film or the first couple films, which I understand. But it takes a different type of story, because right from the start, first of all, I love the dark setting. Like I love the aesthetic that we're being given. I think it was on purpose with the grittiness and like the 80s and 90s vibe. Did you get that same vibe that you're watching something that was kind of like old school with the aesthetic?
Yeah. And to your point, like the movie even opens with the slow shot of a ship approaching in space, but the ship is completely dark. And I feel like that's a counter to what we usually see. Usually when a movie opens and you see a spaceship, there's lots of blinking lights and things all over it. And at first, you don't even realize you're looking at a ship until you get closer and see the shadows of it. And then it kind of comes to life as you're going. So I feel like that kind of, even the opening shot goes along with what you're saying with that dark aesthetic.
Even like I really like that 20th century logo, the sound that they cut. It was like very like Marvel Studios like of putting like your own theme of the film into like the logo opening, which is really cool. So that really set the tone too. And I just really liked just how it looked. I felt like I was watching something from the late 80s, early 90s, but like sharp. I watched on IMAX, and literally in IMAX, you think you're in space. A lot of those camera movements when the ship's moving and all stuff, you kind of get space sick, I would call it at times. I almost did watching it. But the story follows a group of young space colonizers scavenging the farthest corners of a space station because they just want to get off this colony because they're working too hard and there's no life for them pretty much. But they don't know what they're getting into, as I will say. And I really like that story. You know, it's a very micro story at the same time. And where they head to, they probably shouldn't have. Their dreams are way too big, I would say. And um, I really like Fede really able to capture like the edge of your seat tension many times with maybe the music, some of the scenes, some of the camera angles. Really love that. Sci-fi horror is hard to do. Not everyone can do it where it grabs your attention, but it did start off a little slow. What did you say, Drew? What do you think about like the setup before we get into Romulus, which is the name of the spaceship, pretty much?
Yeah, it's like it takes a little bit to get going. It's really trying to introduce you to these characters and kind of establish the relationships they all have. But I feel like once the horror elements really kick in and once it takes off, that the film really picks up. I'd like that it's a lot of younger people. To your point, it's like this, in the original Alien, it's a crew that's been working together for a long time. They have rapport. They've been on the ship a while. They're kind of a variety of ages. This is clearly like a young group of people in this that are a little bit fresher, maybe they know what they're doing, but they make a lot of mistakes. And I feel like it's
I mean,
believable.
they're hitchhikers pretty much. They're trying to find a way to hitchhike, kind of steal a spaceship just to go to another planet.
Yeah, and I feel like talking about hitchhikers and even the planet where they start off, where they're working and then where it's dark, they don't ever get to view the sun and all, they do a really good job of kind of establishing some new lore and locations while building on what exists. Because not to spoil anything, but I think there have been a lot of people saying to what you said that it's like it's just redoing the first one and yes, to a degree it echoes a lot of the tones and feelings of the first one, but then it also manages to capitalize on the lore from the first one. It manages to incorporate lore that was introduced in Prometheus and Covenant in an interesting way, and it builds its own new things too. So I feel like it did a really good job of capitalizing on what was there before, but also kind of creating its own new path through that. So I think it's okay to imitate the past if you're also putting your own spin on it. And I feel like that's what happened here.
Well, I mean, what really freshness can you bring to this franchise that really Scott created with this? I mean, they're using the same tropes. That's all it is. It's the same tropes. It's a new location, new set of people, uh, variation, and whatever the xenomorph you want to call them. Like, just but it also is connected to the other films and the different lores we've been introduced before. You spoke of the cast, young, kind of unknown cast, except one really, Kaylee Spaney, who we've talked about her before. She is a great actress. I'll say that. I never liked the character she played. I will say
I remember we we were really at odds about her when we both saw Priscilla, and that was one that I liked and you were down on. I would say, were we both positive on her in Civil War? I can't even remember what we talked about.
Okay, I would say is I think she's a great actress. It's just the character she ended up playing. I dislike. Just in Civil War, I didn't like her character either, because it was the reason why certain things happened and some people lost their lives because of her. Like, she just plays unlikable characters. And in this one, it's half and half, because some of her actions, it's kind of like she's a good-hearted person, but like some of the things like she doesn't stand up for and all that stuff, she kind of gets walked around, stepped on a lot. And
Yeah, she's essentially like the hero character here,
yeah.
kind of being like the Ripley role.
And she's a great hero in this. So like I love it when she does end up standing up for herself as she needs to and really taking control. It's like the lead up to it, right? It's because she's like very she's a little soft at first for obvious reasons, and then kind of has to kind of get some muscles and really fight back.
And see, on this one, the funny thing is, like, I'm kind of more in line where you've stood on the past with her. Like, I like Kaylee Spaney a lot as an actress. I think she's fine in this movie. I think the character is a little bland. Like, she's fine. Like, Kaylee Spaney's fine, and I enjoyed her for the most part of the movie. It's just not. Rain is her character's name, and I just don't think she's that interesting of a character. The character that's the most interesting is Andy,
David
played by David
Johnson.
Johnson.
I have tweeted about it. I've like tried to make sure he sees it, everyone sees it, because everyone's been really praising him, and I hope he sees everyone praising him. What a performance he has done as this. What do they call them? They're not androids per se. What do they call their?
Yeah, it's an android.
It's an android. That's the technical term they go for in the franchise. Okay, so yeah, he plays the android so good. You really like him from the get go, and you understand the changes he goes through for obvious reasons. But I'm like rooting for him, and I'm like rooting against the humans, and I'm like rooting for the xenomorphs to do their job. And I'm trying to figure out like which version of Andy, which the android, like what's going to happen with him, because it's part of the plot. But that's the fun part for me, and I'm like rooting for the xenomorphs to really get after the humans and let Andy live. But yeah, props to David Johnson. Like, wow, what a performance! He's been in a lot of stuff, so he's not really a newcomer per se in the industry. But this film will have put his face out to millions and millions of people, and he's already a rising star, and I think he's someone we need to pay attention to once he gets a much bigger roles, bigger films to do. But he has a lot of stuff coming out. But until his next big one, I mean, he's someone everyone needs to watch out for and pick him up, because he was fantastic. I've never seen anyone able to perform it's a hard character to play too, and not make it seem so weird or dumb or anything like that. And you just like believe everything of him.
Yeah, it looks like the actor is David Johnson's a lead role in the show Industry, which I've never seen, but I know people like that show on HBO. And yeah, he's doing easily the heaviest lifting here from an acting perspective, but he's very good. And yeah, like you said, the changes he goes through, I just was very captivated by that character the whole time. And as with alien movies, it's kind of a trope of them, but the character's introduced and I don't think it's really that big of a spoiler to say, because like you don't really know he's an android at first, but you find out very quickly in the first few minutes of the movie that he is an android. So I'm like, immediately, I'm like, oh, they got me. I didn't know this character was an android, and he is one. And so, but he's
And that's the
twist
brilliance,
on that.
and that's the brilliance of Feda's writing, because the way they introduced both of them together in the beginning, they kind of presented it differently, and then you're just like, what is their relationship and what's their situation? And pretty quickly you figure out what's going on. So like there's no time wasted really explaining who they are, what their plans are. It's just the other friends that are very unlikable too, we get introduced to. And so their performance don't really stand out too much. Spoiler alert, the deaths of many of these people is like what you look forward to.
Yeah, if you don't,
I mean,
what does an alien movie? What does an alien movie require? Right, it requires
a lot of sacrifice, not many survivors,
facehuggers, xenomorphs, androids, and people dying. Like that's that's
minimal survivors is what they're about, right? There's never like a big group of people that survived dealing with them. So which I was glad, like that's what I was saying. I was rooting for them because everyone else was kind of unlikable, and no one really had a prominent, performance per se. No one really stood out. Anyone else stand out to you in this? That was part of the main cast. I know there was maybe a cameo that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that we can get to that. We can do like a spoiler warning at the end or something, because it's like it's hard not to talk about this movie and not at least mention that. The other actress I want to mention is Isabella Merced, who she's like she ends up playing a very integral role to this movie, but for a lot of it, she's kind of off to the side because she's not like on the main mission with everybody. She kind of stays back in the ship, but she's a young actress who I feel like has been on the verge of like getting the big break or moving on to the next step, but hasn't. She played Dora in the live action Dora in the Lost City of Gold movie. She's been in some movies like Instant Family and
She's in Transformers.
she is in a Transformers movie. She was in Madam Web earlier this year as one of the 3 girls that are on the run.
She's gonna be in The Last of Us. And
That's
then
the main thing is
Superman, hot girl. I mean, so she's
I think
on
between
the rise.
Alien Romulus and Superman and the key role that she's playing in The Last of Us, I think that she's finally gonna get the a little bit more exposure. So I think she's one to be on the lookout for.
I don't know. You say a little bit of exposure. That's a lot of exposure.
It is a lot of exposure.
Especially when Superman comes out on top of that. And The Last of Us. I mean, so she's gonna be really busy in 2025. Yeah, her performance. I mean, her character not really useful in the beginning and not part of the plot, really hanging back, and all of a sudden they use her all the way. So
well, there's things about her character that I early on was like, this is somehow going to come into play. Like how can it not? But we won't not have to get into that.
No, of course not. But I thought there were some decent scares. I'm like squeamish a little bit, and I kind of get like grossed out. I don't think this one pushed it that far. I handle it pretty well. I didn't need to cover my eyes like I usually do for some things. I could handle this film when it comes to horror and some of the scares and the twists and turns and stuff like that. And it was kind of fun because there's a lot of cool action shots too. I was very impressed by the cinematography in this film, and I think that's what I was focusing on. Of like, also the lack of CGI and so much practical effects. And I was trying to figure out like what was real and what wasn't, and it was really hard to tell.
I agree. Yeah, there were some parts, but like the first time you see a chest burster and the alien coming out, and I was like, man, this looks great. And you could tell that it was practical at times with some of the face huggers and what they were doing. And there's actually a really great sequence in the movie where they have to basically sneak through or walk through a room full of face huggers, and they they even say that face huggers they can't see, but they are attracted to sound, and they're attracted to body temperature. So they raise the temperature
that's
to
probably the one
match it.
scene I had a problem with because there was a phone call. I mean, there's a phone call, and I'm just like, come on. I was like, why are you? Or not a phone call. It's not a phone call per se, but I'm like, why are you even talking? Like, why even trying to talk? Like, why do you think it's even okay to whisper? And that's what I had a problem with. I'm like, you are a moron. Like, just and I like Kaylee Spaney's character is looking at him like, are you okay, buddy? Like, why are you doing that? And she's like anticipating something. But I was like, that was like the moment I really disliked about the film. And that's just part of the writing. It's not like a bad part of the plot, but I was like, yeah, you're not going to make it out if this is how dumb you are. That you're willing to have communications while the android's telling you to be quiet, don't do a thing, make sure they had to raise the temperature just so they couldn't be seen by the heat vision of these face huggers or whatever you want to call it.
But I just liked as they're walking through, you do see these like practical face huggers mounted on boxes or sitting in like, or moving in the background. And most of them seem to be practical. And they also managed to kind of like with the face huggers and even with some pods that the aliens are in, there's just some very, I don't know how to put this, like overtly like sexual references with these aliens and what they represent. Like it's very gross. It's very,
I mean, there's a lot of phallic shapes when it comes to the designs of many of this stuff, but it is what it is. And even the xenomorph I saw videos of is practical.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool. So I was just watching like what was practical and what wasn't. And I think I would say 85%, I mean, probably close to 85 to 90% you can easily say was practical, but probably a little bit more just, some of the spaceship stuff on the outside. But I'm saying internally when they're inside the spaceship, majority was practical. And it looked great. And I love like the backstory of like the Romulus ship that they put in. And like I said, I'm not well versed in the Alien franchise, but I picked up on some of the connections and stuff like that. But there's a lot more, right? That's, if you're an avid Alien fan, you would understand more and kind of see, because I know there were some things that I probably just went over my head. Anything that stood out to you?
Well, I like face huggers a lot, but I feel like the face huggers, what they do and how they essentially implant you with the like an alien fetus, I think is in the movies in the past, they're kind of scary, but it's like it's a transition point, right? It's like the face huggers, how you get from point A of no xenomorph to point B of a xenomorph there. And the fact that this movie uses multiple face huggers as an actual monster element in itself, I thought was very smart. Like having groups of them, like almost little hordes of face huggers, is truly terrifying. They're scary. And so I liked that it seemed like Fede Alvarez had kind of an interest in the face huggers as a whole and what they represented. And
I mean, that's part of the
some truly
marketing point
terrifying
too. If you watch the
stuff.
marketing stuff, it's like people with face huggers walking around. So like the face huggers are a bigger star than the actual xenomorph, I feel like. Just in the marketing aspect of it. You saw my popcorn bucket right there. I mean, the face hugger, they're trying to make a comeback. You know, they're like enough xenomorph stuff. We need to give some praise to our face huggers that give birth pretty much to our xenomorphs.
Yeah, I think that the like obviously the tone and especially the beginning and it really does represent the original Alien movie. I think there's some of the action elements towards the end and you know, slight spoiler, but multiple xenomorphs kind of made me was reminiscent of Aliens to me, the sequel. Um the final act, like the final action sequence, has a lot reminiscent of Alien Resurrection, which is kind of crazy. And then the way that they get to that point really has tie-ins to the lore established in Prometheus and Covenant and the creators and whatnot there, which I was really not expecting. So yeah, there's a lot of little throwbacks and nods to all the different movies. And of course, Wayland Yutani looms large over this movie. You can't have an Alien movie without them. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, is there another company in a like another fictional company in a movie that has a bigger presence than Wayland Yutani has in the Alien movies? Like you've got Skynet and stuff in the Terminator movies, but Wayland Yutani is just so key in these. And even if there's no representatives from the actual organization there, like just the logo and the presence, it's really incredible.
I mean, there kind of is representation. I guess a major spoiler we can talk about.
Right.
I'll let you go with that because you're probably more well versed in it than I am. Because it took me a while to kind of piece it together and kind of do a little research too. Because like I said, I knew it was from, but like I didn't understand the full effect of it in this film.
And this is one of the things that I feel like has been the most divisive about this movie from just some of like the letterbox reviews and things that I've been looking at. But yeah, major spoilers. There's a point in this movie where they come across an android, like half destroyed android, on the ship that they're on, and they activate it to get information. And it's like this kind of like deep faked but de-aged Ian Holm android who Ian Holmes in the original Alien, and he plays the, I can't remember the name, I think it's Ash or something, the name of the android that he plays in that. And it's a twist in the original Alien movie that his character is an android. Like that's a big reveal in that movie. And so here there's another android named Rook that just has the same image, you know, looks the same, but it's a different character. But yeah, so that was kind of a big tie-in to the first movie, is having this android with the likeness of the late Ian Holm, who I think passed away in 2020. So that was a little bit disorienting, because I immediately recognized him and knew it. But my first thought was like, isn't Ian Holm passed away? So it's like that's always just a little bit, you know, strange. And I just didn't think the CG always looked very good on this part and this character in particular, but I thought the choice was interesting. So I don't hate it. And the role he played was key because he's very similar to the Ian Holm android in the original, which is very pro Wayland Yutani, doing what's best for the company, even at the expense of people's lives.
Yeah, I thought it made sense for the plot, or like it really made the plot a little more exciting at the same time. And his presence was pretty eerie at times as well. So he definitely did a lot in this film to elevate it at times. You talk about this, you know, his face, you know, with CGI or whatever you want to call it, $80 million budget for this film. Let's just say that it's not a lot of money. But this movie looks amazing.
For a big franchise movie, yeah.
So the fact that his look was a little iffy at times, definitely could understand that and ignore that, to be honest, especially from someone that's not around anymore and they want to make that connection. Speaking of the budget, it's already made, I think now over like 109 million worldwide by now. So already a big success, already putting down Deadpool and Wolverine. They are not number one anymore. Now it's Alien Romulus, another rated R film, which is wild. I don't know. Has there been a time where there's been back to back weekends or even three? I don't know whenever Deadpool and Wolverine came out, multiple weekends where it's an R rated movie that's number one at the box office. I don't remember when that could have been.
Oh,
Maybe
that's a good
Joker.
point.
Yeah, we could say maybe Joker was because it, but in general, here comes another rated R movie and it's killing it, which is awesome. I mean, that's really impressive that movies for adults are doing really well at the box office. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of kids at these movies anyway. So there's a lot of parents taking their kids for this one.
As I was leaving my screening of Alien Romulus, there's a mom taking two probably like middle school aged boys in to see Deadpool and Wolverine in the theater next door, which I like is not that surprising. It's probably okay, but like it just made me think of like, yeah, you know, they kind of marketed Deadpool and Wolverine like even as an R-rated movie to like your teenage boy is gonna want to see it.
Exactly. But also the most impressive thing is what a year for Walt Disney, because Inside Out 2, big numbers, the Deadpool and Wolverine, and then now with this Fox, there's another Fox, 20th Century Studios now, but another Fox title right there. Doing good. Oh, this was I forgot to say. And Planet of the Apes, on top of that, did really well this year too. So a lot of 20th Century Studios, which was usually the Fox stuff, is doing really well with Deadpool, Planet of the Apes, and Aliens. Like that's pretty good. So it's good investment from Disney buying them and making some really good product. And I wish they do the same love to everything else Disney and Marvel wise. They showed the 20th Century Studios stuff because those stuff has been really a big knockout, especially the last Planet of the Apes film. Really, really good.
Well, there's been, there were a lot of people in the film community that after a really rough May at the box office were like, it was all a doom and gloom outlook, right? It was like the movies are dead. People aren't going to the movies. These movies are all underperforming. Movies like Furiosa and so on, like just didn't really move the needle. And then, the middle of June, a little movie called Inside Out 2 came out. And now it seems like ever since Inside Out 2, like movies have been doing pretty well. And even if you look at what's in theaters now, I feel like it's the first time in a while where like you can look at what's playing at your local cinema and there's a variety of choices, right? Like there's now an R-rated space sci-fi horror movie, but you could also have an R-rated action comedy in the MCU with Deadpool, but then you have like kind of a dark romance movie with It Ends With Us, which is still doing really well at the box office, magnificently so. I mean, power to the book clubs and these novels that are super popular and being able to translate that to making money at the box office. You got Twisters, like the kind of the family action movie, but then you've still got Despicable Me 4 and even Inside Out 2 are still lingering in theaters for kids. You've got Trap for another original thriller. I just feel like for once there's some options at the theaters.
And
like you can
coming.
go and have some fun.
More is coming, just like this weekend. Blink Twice. I have that review up. Blink Twice shocked me of what that is. I was not expecting a great directorial debut by Zoe Kravitz, which was amazing. The Crow's coming out. Strange Darling is coming out finally. That was a fantastic film that we got to watch.
That's what we might have to talk about that again in the coming weeks.
That'll be our next episode. We'll talk Strange Darling and Blink Twice if you can catch that. I think that's actually I think those films are paired perfectly. If anyone listening out there is looking for a nice double feature film to watch, I would say Strange Darling and Blink Twice are paired perfectly together. That's actually would be a fun watch to do both of them if you go to the theaters to watch both of them, because
we were just so fortunate to see Strange Darling in the setting that we did, because we both got to see that at Fantastic Fest last year and both went in knowing nothing. So that movie just played so well in that crowd. I'm so happy to see it getting a wider release now, finally. But if you've watched the trailer and the marketing for it, they're really marketing it perfectly. So like it's one that I really don't want to say much about that, because the experience of us getting to go into it blind is what I think made that so effective.
Yeah, and this is probably close to a year ago almost.
Yeah.
It's been that long. And on top of that, what's coming out the following weekend, there is Reagan, and then Afraid, and then 1992, which has Ray Liotta, Scott Eastwood, and Tyrese Gibson, and a couple other stars in there. And I actually spoke to the director of the film and two of their young stars, and One of them's Dylan Arnold, who was in Oppenheimer as Oppenheimer's brother. Uh,
Oh,
forget,
okay. Yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
I spoke to him, and I spoke to who else? Oh, Christopher Emmanuel, who was really great in this. So I'll have interviews for that up as well. I've been keeping busy, Drew. I keep forgetting all the things I've been doing, so I got to drop them and inform people what to expect. Afraid, I kind of want to see what's happens with Afraid if we're going to end up watching that. That's about an AI. So there's a lot of stuff, and then we have Fantastic Fest coming out next month that Drew will be at. So there's a lot. I feel like you talk about the summer being busy. I think now it's going to get even more busy for many reasons. A lot going on, and this month is going to finish really strong, I would say.
I agree. I just also, while I'm thinking about it, regarding Alien Romulus, bringing it all full circle, there's one other key things you were asking me about different tie-ins to the previous movies. There is one part in this movie where a character says the line that's from Aliens that uh, Sigourney Weaver says there, where she says, "Get away from her, you bitch." And that line is used in this movie. And I'm not going to lie, Sean, it made me roll my eyes when it happened. That was a negative for me. I was like, this is a version of a bad throwback. Like, I thought that was really lame. Sorry, I forgot about that, and I thought of it, and I wanted to make sure we said that in part of the review.
I saw other people say the same thing, but I don't think that bothered me or took me out of it. I thought it was pretty funny, and you gotta have fun with it. And I felt like that's what they did with this film. Everyone seemed to have a really good time with Alien Romulus, and Oh, and speaking of Aliens versus Predators, like it was the last year or 2 years ago we got Prey, so like we're getting a
Yep.
resurgence of this, and I kind of want to see another Aliens versus Predators.
I will say, considering how much I love the Alien movies, I have not seen either Alien versus Predator movie, so those are blind spots for me.
Well, can't call you a true fan then of the franchise. You haven't seen those. Maybe I'm more of a true fan because I've seen those.
I played the Alien Isolation video game, which is actually a very good game. But yeah, I'd always heard such negative things about Alien versus Predator, but I feel like there's a little bit of a reclamation project going on with those. Like, there are people watching them saying at least the first one is like actually kind of good. So maybe I need to finally visit those.
The first one's really good, and it's almost like Alien Romulus. Like they're in somewhere, they get trapped. I mean, it's really good. I think Alien versus Predator, the first one at least, you'll really like it. And yeah, let me know your thoughts next time we do this.
Yeah, I'll have to visit those.
Yeah, watch all of them probably just back to back to back. I was actually watching Prometheus today or yesterday just because I was trying to get like, I was like, is it still just as good as I thought? I said it is pretty good, but it's a little slow at first. Just
Yeah,
which is
but that one
expected.
does such great world building, and I love that movie.
That is true.
That
But
was
I
like
always I want to
peak me
fast forward
learning
to
that
everything.
Fassbender was so great.
What a
Good
cast!
stuff.
What a cast in that! I forgot the cast of that film. Wild. Everyone's in it, and yeah, I totally forgot. So when I was watching, I was like, wait, everyone's in here. Where are they now? What are they making anything just as good? But obviously they are.
Yeah, because that was like we're during the time of like we're really trying to make Idris Elba a movie star, and he has like a side role in that, and then now I feel like he's finally reached that point.
No,
of
he's
like,
made it. I mean,
yeah.
he got look at cast right now. Yeah, really good film. You want to see what do you want to see next from this franchise? I guess is the best way we can wrap things up.
Well, of course, I'll watch Alien Earth and see what they're doing with the TV show. But I mean, I feel like Fede Alvarez was really getting his footing with this one. If Fede wanted to do another Alien movie, I would be down to see what he does next, and maybe go. We've established this one played it a little bit closer to the vest in the beginning before kind of going a little bit crazier at the end. Now you've opened the door, just go full crazy with the next one. Like, let's get really out there with some weird alien xenomorph stuff.
I'm like torn between what I like about the franchise. I like the stories that really aren't about the crazy xenomorphs. I like some of the lore. I like really a lot of the lore and the building of like where everything came from, or just even like the company, like being the company being built out and stuff like that, and what their mission is, and like what are their ethics and stuff like that. I really love the backstory of the company. and just seeing where that goes. But that's like a whole different thing. Also, I kind of want to see where this movie ended and see what happens to these two, three, four, five, whoever,
Yeah,
whoever ends up.
who lives and who dies.
That's what I like about some of these films. It's like I want to see like what happens, the continuation. Like the story doesn't end at the end of the movie. There's always more to it and stuff like that. And another Alien versus Predator. Let's do it. Let's do another crossover. Why not?
Sure.
And obviously, people say that's like a separate timeline and stuff like that, but they made it happen, and I'm down for it. I just don't.
Yeah, let's have a Predator show up in the next Fede Alvarez Alien movie.
Well, he was saying that he would be up for it, so why not? It'd be a lot of fun. So if you do end up watching Alien Romulus, highly recommend IMAX if you have an IMAX near you. If you don't, the biggest screen you can find.
Yeah, I saw it in Dolby and Dolby Atmos, and it was great. So if you can't see IMAX, it's a good alternative.
Yeah, biggest screen you can find. Alien Romulus. We enjoyed it. Looking forward to more. Love sci-fi. When you combine it with horror, it's a lot of fun. Drew, we got a lot going on next. I don't know. We have to just take a breather maybe and then come back, and because I feel like there's going to be a lot more we'll be talking about. But definitely Blink Twice and Strange Darling is on the docket, and I'm excited for that.
And then not long after that, we can't say his name 3 times, but I'll say it once now. Beetlejuice is coming.
Beetlejuice?
Whoa, that's twice. You said it twice. Don't say it again. Can't say it again. We cannot summon him right now on the podcast.
We'll leave it right then there. For all of you tuning in, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share all the Nerdtropolis content, follow us on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, Facebook. It's all at Nerdtropolis. Easy to find, a lot of good stuff. Interact with us. Visit the website as often as you can. Once again, Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms. You can find me here talking movies with Sean every week at the Moviegoers Society. And yeah, that's about it.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoers Society. Once again, I'm Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.